Hello, hello. This is Onda UNED in the International Conference of Distance Education, ICDE 2023 from the International Convention Center of Costa Rica. This is Onda UNED, and we keep on traveling through Canada, this wonderful country, and heading to the British Columbia, which is the state that is further west of this huge country. And we are discussing about a university that is located straight in the point where two huge rivers meet and
Yes.
has a very strong connection with Aborigines. So this is the Thompson Rivers University, and this is Ken Monroe. What's it?
Yes, that's right. Thank
Ken-
you very much, Sebastian, for
Thank you, Ken.
having a chat with me.
Thank you. And maybe tell us a little bit about the history, the particularities of this university.
Well, Thompson Rivers University is a small university. There's maybe 10,000 students who attend the campus face-to-face, but then we have an online department which serves another 10,000 students. But like you'd mentioned, the name Kamloops is actually derived from an indigenous word of the Secwepemc people, which means the meeting of two rivers. So there's the North Thompson and the South Thompson meet, and then the university actually overlooks that intersection. But it's in Canada, there's a very strong movement about about truth and reconciliation with our relationship with our indigenous people, and our university has taken to heart this idea of reconciliation, and we have a very strong motivation to talk the truth about what happened to the indigenous people and write what we can. So in the work that I do online, there's always a component of indigenization, of talking about our indigenous history and trying to bring it to light so that people understand it and we can move forward.
When you discuss this presence of the First Nations, as you call it, in the campus or the training within the university, how do you think of distance learning as a mean to really support the growth of these communities, not being an imposition of the white culture, but kind of actually using technology to reinforce this particularities, what they call in here the cosmovision of the Aborigines?
Well, you hit the irony very, very well, Sebastian, because using high technology to talk about indigenous concepts which have exist for thousands of years, there's some irony in that. But the first place that we always begin is speaking with the Aboriginal people as we develop courses. And so we do hire people who have indigenous knowledge so that they have a look at our curriculum to make sure that what we're bringing forward is done in a good way and done in a responsible way. And so that's what we can do. Those are the first steps. And then we listen. We listen a lot to the people we get feedback from. And in terms of the distance education, of course, many of the indigenous community members live in rural areas, and so we do have good internet connections in those areas, and they are able to participate in our courses. And we try to build in additional supports for them because, again, in many instances, traditional rituals or ceremonies take place, and so their time frame is somewhat different from what we would normally feel. But we work around that. We have a very flexible delivery model, which is based on people openness and people succeeding at their own pace.
Do they speak a separate language that you kind of integrate into the courses, or they already speak English?
No, it is done in English. There is a renaissance of Aboriginal languages in Canada, and we have in our department worked with them to create a website of Secwepemc words and phrases, because that vocabulary, of course, once it's lost, it's the culture goes with it. But there are elders who have the vocabulary, and that's being recorded and then brought into websites so that it can be taught to the younger generations.
when you approach the communities, how do you do it? Is it, I remember most of the Aborigine cultures I've met, they always, the elderly council, they have some sort of elderly council, which is always a very important instance that you have to approach to get approval.
Yes.
So how does that work with you?
Yeah. We have an indigenous education department, which is made up from the elders of the different nations within the Secwepemc tribe. And so those people are the ones we access the elders or people with specific knowledge in the content that we want to bring into a course. And so, yes, there's a formal process of going through the elders because they're the knowledge keepers of those places.
Great. So when we first spoke, you told me one of the things that is catching me is AI. What do we do with that? What are your thoughts after all of these discussions we have been talking these days?
Well, the dichotomy is when I'm back in Canada and we're talking about artificial intelligence and use of it with a professor to bring into his or her course, there's fear. There's this change. There's oh my goodness, students are going to cheat. How am I going to? Are they learning if they're just going and putting it in? So it's a very, very negative side of things, and technology is agnostic. It's how you use it. It can be used for good. It can be used for bad. But what I saw in the types of sessions which were here is that positive side. It's how can we use it and how can we integrate it, because it's here, and as an institution of higher learning, we can't stick our heads in the sand and ignore it. We have to teach people how to use it. There was an interesting interview that I was watching, and the fellow's sort of idea was that artificial intelligence is not going to replace jobs, but people who know how to use artificial intelligence are going to be more valuable than people who don't. And so, couched in that way, you can't ignore it. And you actually have, you have a duty to bring that to the students and say, this is here and you need to understand it, and we can teach you how to understand it so that you can participate in the larger world. Because if you don't, somebody else will.
Taking into account your sensitivity with Aborigine cultures and this second issue, how we deal with this? Because the ancestry is very important with them, but they cannot ignore this.
Right. Well, and so this is the part again of understanding these tools, which we're just at the beginning of. And we know that there's bias in these algorithms. We know that it's missing out. And so we also know, therefore, that artificial intelligence is not the answer, right? It can produce you something, it can give you something, but that something has to be validated against other ways of knowing as well. And that's the key, right? It's not to just absorb it like it's the truth. It's to say, okay, this is what this thing gave me, that it's scraped out of the universe. But is it true? And how do we validate what it says? Because again, we know that indigenous culture is not in that big thing that it's scraping from. So there's other gaps as well. There's people of color, there's all sorts of other minorities that aren't scraped in the big thing. So we have to be careful about that. But again, by understanding that, we can deal with it.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here, and it's the voice of Ken Monroe from the Thompson Rivers University. Maybe a final message you want to deliver to our audience.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to be here. Not just from, of course, the beautiful weather side where I can wear my sandals instead of my snow boots, but this is a beautiful country, and I really congratulate UNED and for co-hosting us. It's been a beautiful experience, and I hope to stay a little bit longer and to come back again.
Thank you very much. And it was a pleasure also to discuss the Aborigine issues, taking into account we are the university that has the greater student amount from Aborigine cultures in our country. So we take
Very
that in
good.
our heart as well.
Good. Thank you, Sebastian.
Thank you. This was another conversation, very interesting conversation from the International Congress of Distance Education, ICDE 2023. This is Onda UNED. Thank to the tech team, Jose, Randall, and Eduardo, and also Danilo and Sharon, which are around there. And thank you very much. We keep on speaking also to the cooperation office of UNED that has helped us to be here. Thank you very much.